Hello everybody, and welcome to the video module on how to calculate percent discounts for the Math 110 class. I have to apologize, the video on these is getting a little grainy. I need to kind of invest in some better video recording software, but bear with me, I'll try to write everything down. Hopefully it'll show up on your end. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you this cool Nautica polo shirt that really kind of piqued my interest, if you will. Sorry, bad joke, bad joke. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this list price here of $49.50 and kind of just talk about how did they get this sales price here of $24.68? Is it really this 50% discount? And what are some other ways that we can handle discounts? So if you watch the video on the sales tax that I already put up on the Moodle page, you'll see that I had just, rather than doing kind of the old traditional method of multiplying by the discount or by the tax in that sense, and then finding out what the tax was and then adding on to it, it's sometimes better to just go ahead and do the subtraction or the addition with the percentage first and then the multiplication, and it saves yourself a bit of heartache. So I want to show you how that same process can be done here. Now, this 50% is a little silly because if I do my 100% and I subtract 50% from it, I just get the exact same thing. I still get 50%. So there's not a whole lot going on with the 50% discount. It's actually probably the easiest one to do because what you do is you take the original price of $49.50 and you multiply it by 50%. And if you recall, when I multiply by a percentage, I'm skeptical of those percentage buttons on calculators because I find they do weird things sometimes. So rather than multiplying by 50%, I'm going to remember that the percentage is right here and just shimmy it over once and twice because 50% is out of 100%, so that I end up with 0.50. So in my calculator, I'm going to just type 49.50 times 0.5 or 0.50, either way you want to look at it. The zero is not really necessary on either one. And I end up with $24.75, which is interesting because Amazon here says that we have a 50% discount, but they're actually only charging us $24.68. They're actually giving us a better deal. My guess is with Amazon, they're probably rounding to the nearest percentage, so it's probably like a 50.2 or 50.3% discount, and they're just adjusting it to 50%. So that one, maybe 50%, maybe a little too easy. So what let's do is let's ignore this price and let's ignore the percentage. And let's say instead they give us a 30% discount, so 30% off. What that's pretty much meaning is if I look at this t-shirt here, just like the television in the previous video, the t-shirt represents 100% of the value. But rather than adding on this little extra percentage for the convenience of buying the television, here we're actually removing some of the value of the t-shirt. So kind of what's happening is we're getting like the shoulder and the sleeve for free. We're taking off 30% of the shirt's value. So what ends up happening is we have 100% minus 30%, and that ends up giving us 70%, just 100 minus 30, and it's a percentage. What this means is that the new price would simply be 70% of whatever the original price was. And that's a pretty easy calculation. You're just going to take the $49.50 and multiply it by 70%. Now keep in mind, we know it's multiplication rather than division. I didn't really address that in the last video, but the reason is we want the answer to go down here because it's a discount off. And when we multiply by a percentage less than 100, it's going to go down. So just something to put in the back of your mind. So I'll take my $49.50, and instead of multiplying it by 70%, I'm going to multiply it by decimal here, once, twice, 0.70, or just 0.7 if you'd rather. And I do $49.50 times 0.7, I end up with $34.65. No extra subtraction with the pennies. I don't have to do any awkward calculations. I just do the easy subtraction with the percentages and then do a multiplication. So what about if I instead wanted like a 45% discount? Because a lot of people, when they see the 30%, they'll say, well, that's too easy. I don't even need to do that much work. Because if I just figure out what 10% is, I just take that off 3 times. Fair enough. I like it. If you can figure that one out, I think you know exactly what you're doing. So let me show you a situation where it actually you might need to use this process. So say I've got this t-shirt here, and again the t-shirt is 100% of the value, but I'm only paying for that left-hand portion. All of this over here I'm getting for free. So I'm just taking off 45% of the t-shirt. So just like this previous problem, 100% minus 45% is going to be 55%. That's how much I'm paying for the t-shirt, or at least that's how much of the value I'm paying for the t-shirt. So we'll take off $49.50 and multiply it by 55%. And just like we've been doing, that $49.50, oh, forgot my dollar signs there, sorry about that, will become decimal here once, twice, 0.55. So we just take our $49.50 times 0.55, and that gives us $27.225. So that would be, well, Amazon's probably going to cut it off at the hundreds place and make it $27.23. And check it out. That answer makes a lot of sense based on what we've done so far. Because originally we had 50% off and we had, $24.75. When we took off 30%, not quite as much, we had to pay a little bit more, which makes sense because it's not as good of a deal. And when we paid 55% of the t-shirt's value, we got the 45% off, we had to pay a little bit more than the 50% because we're spending a little bit more money on it. So use this reasoning to help check yourself and make sure that the answer is making sense. Hopefully that process made some sense to you, and thanks for watching.